They vote on Monday. Meanwhile, 67 of the 232 Democratic presidential electors signed an open letter demanding an intelligence briefing regarding the possible Russian interference of the presidential election before they vote. I want to bring in California elector and daughter of Nancy Pelosi right now, Christine Pelosi. Christine, good to see you. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks, Maria. Good morning.
So you are leading this open letter initiative directed at James Clapper, the Director of National Intelligence. What are you trying to do?
I'm trying to find out, Maria, whether or not it's true what we read in the paper starting late Friday night, that CIA sources indicate that they have direct evidence that Russia hacked both Democrats and Republicans and decided to only sensationalize and leak information about Democrats in order to swing the election to Trump. We'd like to see the evidence behind the media reports and find out where the manipulation is here and determine whether or not there's any connection between that and the Trump campaign.
Now,
that was the substance of our letter, and that remains the substance of our request, along with a broader bipartisan call to investigate any illegal Russian interference with our election.
We know that Julian Assange from WikiLeaks said that it wasn't the Russians. In fact, it wasn't the Russian government. In fact, it was insiders from the DNC who were sick and tired of what was going on within the Democratic Party. What do you say to that?
Well, and the president said that he confronted Putin directly about it at the G20 summit. So maybe we'll get some more answers from the president this afternoon, Eastern time, as he has his year-end press conference. I know we'll all be watching that with great interest.
You know,
but
I mean,
again,
you could imagine,
Maria, that goes to why we want to look at the evidence and see who's, where the truth is,
right.
So we can find out for ourselves. And we also think the American people should see as much of it as possible.
So
I've heard from people in the intelligence community who said, look, it's never all going to be declassified. There are sources and methods at risk. There are people right now in Russia collecting evidence and around the world.
And they've been for 10 years or 20 years, right? I mean, Russia has been hacking.
But
let's not talk on top of each other, Christine. The audience, Christine,
members of Congress who've seen it can talk about some of it, and electors could be able to see it in a secure, confidential setting.
Christine,
with, of course,
Christine, listen, let's not talk on top of each other. Let's not talk on top of each other, Christine, okay? Because it's not, the audience doesn't know what you're saying or what I'm saying when we talk on top of each other. How much of this is sour grapes on your side's part?
I'm very concerned that the Russians may have interfered illegally with our election, and I want to find out what the truth is. So I'm deeply concerned about what I read, about what I've seen, and if we're being manipulated and that isn't what happened, again, I want to get to the truth, and I think that's my constitutional duty as an elector, but also as an American. I want to find out the truth.
We know that 53% of white female voters voted for Trump. We know that the black community didn't come out for Hillary. We know that Hispanics actually came out for Donald Trump, and we know that white men came out for Donald Trump. How specifically would have the Russians changed that situation?
Well, we also know that Hillary Clinton won the popular vote, and that if 80,000 people in 3 states had voted differently, we'd still be looking at the fact that the Russians apparently, from what we are told and what we don't know and want to find out, hacked both Democrats and Republicans, subjecting people in both parties to sensationalism, what they call doxing. And when you look at something like the so-called Pizzagate rumors that were spread from the Podesta emails, you ended up with a man with a loaded gun going to Comet Pizza in Washington, D.C. last week to supposedly investigate. So my big concern right now is who took that information, how are they hacking it, leaking it, altering it, and sensationalizing it in order to disrupt American politics.
Right.
That's what I want to find out.
And but why do you think so many people came out to vote for Donald Trump? I mean, how much of it could be that Hillary Clinton actually didn't really have a plan? And then there was all that news that, the James O'Keefe videos, that the Dems were in the tank for Hillary so much that they were sending people to Trump rallies. Oh, go wear a Planned Parenthood T-shirt and just go start some noise. I mean, that, I think, colored people's sort of favorability toward the Democrats when you saw all of the planning that went on to actually actually disrupt Trump rallies, not to mention what the head of the DNC did to Bernie Sanders, coming up with all cockamamie schemes that he's not religious, he doesn't believe in God, anything that they could to actually take him down so that everybody would be in the tank for Hillary. How much of it was that?
Well, let me say this as a member of the Democratic National Committee who fought long, hard, and publicly to have more debates, to have more discussion of the Fight for 15 resolution that I wrote and got passed the summer of 2015, and who stood up for Bernie Sanders as a Hillary supporter when the DNC cut his entire campaign off from the voter files after a couple of his staffers had coached some information in Iowa. So as someone who actually stood up for him, I think that I think it hurt us not to have more debates, because if the Republicans had, what, 17, 18, and we had 5, that means they had.
But that was your fault, right? I mean, that was Debbie Wasserman Schultz's call. She didn't want a lot of debates, and she put the debates up against, like, Monday Night Football or Sunday Night Football.
It was the fault of the people
Christine, you can't
who,
keep
once that
talking on
information
top
came
of
out,
me
were
because
no
no
longer
one
at the
hears
DNC.
what you're
So,
saying.
yeah, that's a fight I would agree with you on. Those were concerns I had at the time and continue to have. And believe me, as we're looking now for our new chair and our new officers, a lot of the Democratic National Committee members who feel like we were cut out of the loop are very, very clear that not only do we want a stronger role in running the party and more transparency, but we have to be absolutely sure that our officers are neutral. And
do you think
it
that
says
person,
so right in the bylaws. They weren't. That's why they were replaced.
Do you think that
the fact is,
Christine,
we have some reform to do on our own side.
This interview is about to be over, and you're not going to have gotten anything out on television.
We want to look at what the Russians did to manipulate that.
It's so rude to talk on top of somebody else when they're talking.
Your emails or my emails every day.
You're giving the finger to the audience.
We might also spend our time
defending. You're basically saying, I don't care about the audience. That's what you're saying right now. And that's what you said to the voters as well. By talking over someone else when they're trying to make a point, you're basically saying, I don't care about the viewers. I don't care about the voters. I just want to hear myself and the other person have an argument. I'm asking you not to talk on top of me when I'm talking, and I won't do that to you, so that our audience can actually get something out of this interview. But just the way the voters couldn't get anything and they ended up voting against you, that's what you're doing. You're basically blowing off the audience.
I apologize if I did not hear you start talking in the time difference from me not being in the studio. I thought I was answering your question.
What was Hillary Clinton's plan? What was her plan to make America better?
Well, invest in people, pass comprehensive immigration reform,
how was she planning on investing in people? How was she planning on investing in people?
She had a plan to, as you probably know, modernize the electric grid, pass comprehensive immigration reform, create jobs, particularly in the field of infrastructure.
What was her plan to create jobs?
Well, one example was, if you look at the infrastructure bank that was proposed, where you'd have public-private partnerships that would create shovel-ready jobs, that would promote roads, bridges, tunnels,
I think you just told our audience why she lost the election, Christine. There was no plan. You're having a hard time coming up with how she wanted to create jobs. That's why she lost the election. Unfortunately, it feels like sour grapes. I'm glad you came on to explain it. Thanks for joining us, Christine. We'll be watching the developments. Thank you.